I met my husband, and we came a few times before deciding to do the big jump.
Mhm.
And then when I was 25, so I already had my son was 2 years old, and my daughter, she was 4 months. I just had her in France.
Okay.
And then we thought, oh, we really liked each time we came to Edmonton and the snow and everything. And
Mm.
we thought, oh, let's see. And we were young and ready for new experience too. And so we find out about a visa. There was an exchange between France and Canada. It's called Work and Travel. And so we applied for it, and in a few months we got the paper. And so we said, okay, let's see what it is to actually like not just go for holiday but live there.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new year and a new episode of Immigrants of Canada. Immigrants of Canada is a show that shares successful immigrant stories of hope, struggle, victory, and everything in between. I'm your host, Suzette Smith, and today I'm chatting with my friend, Elodie Monot. Welcome to the show, Elodie.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the show. You're from France. What was it like to grow up and live in France?
So yes, I come from France. I was born there in West Coast actually. And so I'm going to do my best to give you a sense of what it was like. So I grew up in a family. um, I have one sister that's 2 years older than me. And I guess that's a typical size family in France, two or three kids.
Hmm.
And um, my dad was a hairdresser when I grew up, and my mom was working in the restaurant industry. And what to say? Yeah, it's growing up in France is really different than growing up in Canada. So it's hard to sum it up in a few sentences, but it's just like the weather. So I grew up not far from the ocean, so it was more temperate. I think in my childhood we had snow just one time.
No one time, really.
And it was a big deal, like just to get to school. Like we will walk to. I was in elementary school, and we lived in a suburban of a big city, but in a small town. And so all the kids will walk to school. And yeah, I remember that day when it was snowy, we were sliding, and we didn't have the gears that Canadian have.
Mm-hmm. What and how much snow was that?
Not much, and it stayed maybe 2 days, right?
Okay,
But
nice.
I remember, yeah, my dad did, like, yeah, it was so fun. Like, even when I moved to Edmonton, it was something like almost exotical to have snow in the winter. Yeah, that's a big deal when you didn't grow up with it. So it's
Mm-hmm,
very
of
different.
course.
But I remember, yeah, my dad, he brought like baby bath, and I will go on it, and my sister will pull me, and so we had fun for a few days.
Oh, that's so nice. What a great way to create memories. And okay, so other than this snow episode, growing up in France is just it's safe to say that it was different than the Canadian experience.
Yes, because yeah, now when I moved with my two young kids, so I got to discover yeah, just the school, the food, like so many cultural aspects that are so different. And yeah, just everything is so different, the mindset of people. And yeah, so
Mhm.
it's really hard to sum it up. Like even when I grew up, like dinner time, we will all sit at the table. I know in Canada some family do it, but I see more people snacking and sitting maybe around the TV. In France, like in my family, it was a big deal. Like you sit at the table. It's a time to be together. It's a really social time.
Mhm.
And so yeah, little tradition, I think that's were passed on in that
I
sense.
find that's kind of nice, the idea of it, to be honest, because it's a way for you to connect with your family
Yes.
and kind of recap the day. And it's just a different way, I know in my family, I mean, I have dinners with my family. But sometimes, you're always on the go. And so it's hard to have those family dinners the way that you
Mm.
described. So I think that is really quite charming, actually. I like that. And so, how did you find yourself coming to Canada?
So I moved to Canada. So I met my husband, and we came a few times before deciding to do the big jump.
Hmm.
And then when I was 25, so I already had my son was 2 years old, and my daughter, she was 4 months. I just had her in France.
Okay.
And then we found we thought, oh, we really liked each time we came to Edmonton and the snow and everything. And we thought, oh, let's see. And we were young and ready for new experience too. And so we find out about a visa. There was an exchange between France and Canada. It's called Work and Travel. And so we applied for it, and in a few months we got the paper. And so we said, okay, let's see what it is, to actually, like, not just go for holiday but live there. And and we thought, oh, let's improve our English. And like, we
Hmm.
were not super, like, even though we study English, but something else to speak it in the country where everybody just speak English.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so in 2005, that's when we made that jump with that visa. So at first it was just, let's see what it is for 1 year,
Hmm.
and then we're still here.
10 years later. Yeah. Well, and I was just wondering something that you said about learning English. We have this perception, or at least I should say, I have this perception. I had this perception that Europeans can speak English pretty well, just kind of all across Europe. And so it just kind of struck me when you said that it was an opportunity for us to come to Canada and practice our English because and this is maybe wrong of me, but I just kind of assumed that people in France and other European countries, they just intuitively knew English because so many other English speakers traveled there and tour there. So, what was that experience like? Being able to take your English from school and like applying it here in Canada, and what was your level like before you came to Canada?
um, so yes, no, growing up in France, it's like for you growing up here in an English context, you think that's your whole world. So you
Mm,
don't think you will need to use other language because you're raised to function in that environment.
right.
And you don't need English. Like at that time, maybe it changed now with more access to computer, but at that time you didn't need much English. And for French student, it's kind of weird. The accent is hard to pick in
Okay.
English language, and I don't think French are so good, like, with getting language somehow. That's my
Oh,
experience,
interesting.
but or maybe that's just me. I wasn't the best in language class. I, even though I love, like, French language, for me, I love literacy and things like that. But it was hard yet to pick up foreign language.
Right, yeah.
And so yeah, when we moved here, it was like, because it's something to learn it from textbook, and you have your time, but you need also to write it. Like, writing was easier in a way.
Right, yeah.
But then, like, people, they come at you and they speak to you, and I remember even to listen to the news, and it goes so fast. Like, I didn't grasp anything. Or I had a funny story too. When we first rent our first house in
Mhm.
Edmonton, I had to at that time, like, cell phone was just starting, but not that much. So you and with young kids at home, you needed to have a landline. So I remember phoning TELUS, and so I went to the little phone cabin outside and tried to reach them to get the phone, right?
Mhm.
And because it was an automatic machine, I could not, like, it was super hard. I had to make the thing repeat over and over before I reached someone to
Oh,
get it.
oh my gosh, yeah, and that's intimidating too. Speaking from personal experience, it is intimidating to speak to someone in not your native tongue over the
On
phone. You
on
can't
the phone
see their
is
facial
what.
expressions.
Yes, it's way harder on over the phone. Yeah, you don't have any visual to grasp on. So
Exactly.
I think that was part of the interesting experience, and I was like 25. So in France, I was at the peak where I understand how the system work in my country, and I have a strong like family. So I was really practical, and then to go in a country where you barely understand the language, I learned a lot. Like it bring you back to being more humble.
Okay.
Yeah, pay more attention to your environment too.
I love what you said about that. Yeah. It's like learning a new language kind of, it's humbling. It's a humbling experience because you're kind of going back and you kind of have to relearn a brand new set of sounds, a brand new set of words. You kind of just have to start from scratch again. So it is a
and the,
humbling
and
experience.
the way people move are so different too, so you have
Mm,
to learn to read. Like for me, like one example is in France, people, like if you go in France, you will even see like mom yelling at their kids openly on the street, and we don't contain so much, so whatever you have to say often it come out like that. So
mhm.
for Canadian it might be looking like it's rough a little bit, but
Right.
for friends it's like not like it's a way of not hiding like whatever your emotion or they come out. And so at first like interacting with Canadian, I thought, oh, are they hiding anything, because it's like they're more composed and
Mhm.
calm.
Yeah.
uh, so yeah, that's a cultural difference.
Oh, wow. I didn't even notice that. That's a good catch. Yeah, I mean, I know that other countries, for instance, like Italy, Italians speak with their hands, right?
Hmm.
So, and they use their body language a little bit more, but here in Canada, you're right, I guess. North America, it's more poker face. So, yeah,
And
it's
there's
great.
quality to in both sides, I found. Like sometimes when I go back to France, I thought, oh my, like I'm surprised, like yeah, hearing a mom yelling at the kids, or but
Mhm.
I know the warmth in it, like coming from French person. And I remember being all amazed when I moved here, where the mom will take the time to explain to the child, oh, that's why. And like for me, it was like, whoa, they take the time. And so I learned, yeah, I
Mhm.
learned, I think, yeah, it's a, for me, a balance in between.
Right, right, of course. And so, as a new mom coming to Canada, what was that like? What was that whole transition with two small children? Because you said that your son was maybe 2 years old and your daughter was just born. So,
Yes.
yeah, what would that have been like?
So I was lucky in a way that it was a good time to stay home for me.
Okay.
And and my husband was, yeah, was working. So yeah, it gave me some time to get more English and get to know people in a, yeah, in a different way through being a mom. And but yeah, like it was a big learning curve. Like in France, I felt like moms, they go back to work quickly after the baby is born, and there is like a daycare for little babies.
Okay.
And so it's more encouraged that way. And moms at that time, they will breastfeed for 1 month and then start to get ready for work, so they will stop breastfeeding. So I felt
Really?
in Canada, I felt more supported. I had easier time staying home because I will go to the park with my kids and I see other moms, and yeah, they were more support at taking the time to raise your kids.
Mm,
And breastfeeding was also more like that was my experience around women around me, like more accepted in a longer run than 1 month.
right, of course. And so, does that mean that mat leave, maternity leave, in France is 1 month, or is it 3 months, or like what is the typical maternity leave?
If I remember, we because I notice in Canada you work until the end if you can, but in France
Yes.
they give you 1 month. Like at 8 months pregnancy, you already yeah, you can leave your work and get paid, so a month early. But
Mm-hmm.
then, yeah, like at that time, I don't know, it might have changed too since I went. You could get a little bit of money to stay home, but it wasn't much. So most of the women will go back. And I think there was this push, like when everybody do something, it kind of give you a push to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So often, yeah, the baby is 2 or 3 months and the mom is back to work.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
quick. And so in now being in Canada and understanding how Canadian maternity system works, I should say the Canadian maternity leave system, understanding how that works, how could you compare France's and Canada? Do you prefer one over the other, or does it really matter to you?
No, I think I preferred Canada in that sense. I think it's important. Like I have no regret, um, like to have taken the time for my kids. I think it gives them a good start.
Hmm.
And then everybody is different, right? But in my case, yeah, I'm glad um, I had that time, and yeah. And
Yeah.
all the parks, like in Edmonton, we're pretty lucky. There's lots of parks, and so yeah, I keep the French way when they were little. So that means I will take them outside every day, like rain or shine. It was important to take them out.
To get some air. Yeah.
So yeah, it was fun sometime.
That's one thing I noticed about European countries. They love to exercise. Europeans love to exercise. I remember walking through some parks. I mean, not in France specifically, but in Spain. And you see like exercise parks. You see like they look like jungle gyms, but they're for adults, and adults actually go and they do their chin ups and they're doing their sit ups, and there's like these little walker kind of type machines. Like it's funny. I like it. I notice Europeans love to exercise.
Oh, I think it's more, I find myself when I was in France walking way more. Like
Yeah.
you go get your bread in, like often every little town you have a bakery and little store. And so you go every day or walking to school. Yeah, we walk way more. And I think it's also connected to the weather and things are in a city, things are way closer than like Edmonton, everything is spread out.
Right.
So you often need, and we have where in France a system like a bus and like all transportation is super developed.
Yeah.
So
Your metro system is great because it just takes you everywhere in the city. And a lot of cities in Canada, um, I mean, minus Vancouver and Montreal and Toronto, of course, but a lot of the other cities don't really have a super developed train system, for instance. Maybe they
mhm.
have an LRT or a train that has one or two lines, but it doesn't go everywhere in the city. You have to, catch the train, and then you have to catch a bus, and then you have to walk. So it's a little bit, it can be a bit difficult, I think.
Yeah. And you have more space in Canada, like things
Mhm.
are bigger, so
Yeah.
you can park easily in downtown. Than in France, yeah, it might be easier just to take the bus because you would struggle parking.
Oh, yeah, of course, and those streets can be so tiny too.
Very, yes.
Yeah, and so why Alberta of all places? Like, how come, you and your family, I should say, how come you didn't decide to go to Quebec, where there is a French-speaking population there and there's more of a French culture there? Why Alberta?
So what bring us here is so we met. It's an awakened philosopher that give meetings, and he used to give meetings internationally, but also his home base is Edmonton. So
Okay.
that's the reason why we moved in the first place. And
Mhm.
then I think we like the idea of uh, being immersed in a new environment as well and
Mhm.
challenge yourself with the language.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's safe to assume then that you chose Alberta because you wanted to try something different culturally speaking. And so did you find that you gravitated towards groups that spoke French, or did you find that you found more friends that were English speaking?
So yeah, no, at first it was, yeah, we were not drawn to find people from the same country as us. Like we were really coming for the experience and
Okay.
getting to meet that culture here.
Hmm.
But later on, as my kids were getting older and we had to start thinking of school. I don't know how it came about, but we met people and they start to talk to us about the francophone system.
Hmm.
And because I love French literacy, it was super, like, it was important to me that my kids will be able to understand the language and to be able to write in French.
Right, of
I
course.
wanted to share, yeah, my love for the literacy, like French literacy, with them later on in life. So it made sense for me, when they start school in elementary, to put them in a francophone school.
Hmm.
So that was, yeah. So that's how we start to be a little bit more involved with the francophone community,
Hmm.
in Edmonton, and it's a rich community, from like lots of immigrants too, like from
Okay.
Africa, from yeah, different francophone place
Hmm.
to the Quebecois, like, yeah. So it was a rich experience in that sense of the diversity.
I imagine so. Was it easy to preserve the culture then when you were immersed in the francophone world, or?
Yes, no, it was interesting because so I never been to Quebec, so I don't know. Yeah, for me it's hard to speak about that culture because it must be, it's still Canadian, but they speak French, so we can understand each other. But the sense is, yeah, it's a different culture too, and
Mhm.
so my kids will learn about the more the Quebecois traditions, like, how you call it, sirop d'érable, maple syrup, and how it's made, and the
Yeah.
festival around that we don't have in France, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, but super interesting, like really rich too.
Mhm.
So, but definitely when speaking with people from Quebec, yes, you notice as we can communicate in the same language, but there is, yeah, a cultural difference. We didn't, even though we share a language, you can feel you didn't grow up in the same context.
Right, of course. That's so fascinating too. You could have so many um, people speaking the same language, but they come from different places or different parts of the world, and it's just different. And so it really comes out when you're among that group and you just see, like, oh, that's funny. You know, in France, this is what we do, but here, this is what you do. That's so interesting. You know, coming to Alberta as a young mom and kind of setting yourself up and establishing yourself here, you and your family, what other challenges did you face?
Yes, of course, there's lots of challenge. Yeah, because you have to learn how to function in a new context. So yeah, you make mistake, and I think when you come in a country and you don't have the family support, right? Like, so things, you have to make things happen on your own in a context that's not so familiar,
Mhm.
and it takes like years to understand how things work, and so it's not always easy. Sometimes you can be homesick as well,
Right.
and the challenge that, like, you want to meet your mom, but you it's not like she live a few blocks away, so that, yeah, sometimes missing your family as well. So yeah, there's a cost to it,
Mhm.
but also I find when we're going back to our countries, there's we appreciate the time we had together more than, I think, when you're always close. Sometimes there's more drama or
Yeah.
more stories,
Yeah.
then you appreciate, yeah, the time you have. And but yeah, no, it takes time, and But I think if you go with looking at the opportunities that comes with it, then it's all good. It's yeah, just a learning experience. I think one of the challenge we had, I know many people they do the paperwork before they move to that country. So we
Okay.
did one working visa, and then every year we find a way to renew it. But sometimes it was on the edge, like we didn't know if we had to leave. And the more you stay and the more it's harder to picture yourself going back in your country because you start to build things here.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't always easy with young children.
Right.
So
Right. Of course. And okay, so you started with a working visa here, but when did you actually, do you have your permanent resident card or are you a Canadian citizen?
so it took us 7 years to get the permanent residency,
Okay.
and we decided to do the citizenship. When was it? Few years ago. Now I'm forgetting. 2018 or 2019. I forgot,
Okay.
but not so long ago. And
Right.
we thought, yeah, let's do the citizenship for the kids too.
Mm-hmm.
So now my son is 18, so they can have dual citizenship, and it's easier for them for
Mm-hmm.
like studying, whatever. Yeah. And we were happy to get the citizenship too, so we don't have
Oh.
to, yeah, struggle anymore with that part.
Well, and I wanted to ask, I'm so happy for you because I mean, from the stories that I've heard, it's really quite an accomplishment to get your Canadian citizenship. And so, what type of struggles would you have to go through if you didn't have a citizenship? Um, would it be yearly renewals, or like what was the process?
So if when once you get your permanent residency, you're good. Like every 5 years, you have to pay to renew it.
Okay,
So that's the cost of it. So
right.
yeah, everything with immigration, everything costs. So there's a financial part. When we just had working visa, you get it for 1 year, and
Hmm.
then you have to reapply. And so I remember I worked for many years with ABC at start, and they were doing the paperwork for me to apply. But they need to prove that because I work in a francophone classroom, so my skills were needed for that. But they need to put advertisement for the position, and so there's many steps. And I felt like some years it worked better than others. Sometimes we had to reapply twice because I guess they have a number of visas they can give every year, and so
Oh,
it's a whole
wow.
it's a whole system. And even like we did everything on our own, we didn't hire anyone for the process. So
Hmm.
maybe it would have been shorter if we hired someone. So we took our time too.
Yeah.
But I found, yeah, it's a commitment. You need to know why you're here to keep moving forward because it's not that easy. But you learn so much in the process too.
Of course. It's like it's I I've never been pregnant, but I could imagine it much like birthing a baby. You've got, this promise inside of you and you've got um you go through all the months and all the grueling work of, carrying the child, and then when the time comes for the baby to be born, it's painful, it can be grueling, but when the baby's born, it's like like I wouldn't
Yes,
take any of it back.
yeah,
I'm so happy
finally.
to have this baby in my hands, like this precious little baby. And so I can imagine it much like a woman in labor to, to kind of give you an illustration.
And the process, yeah, give me more compassion, I think, for immigrant people, because when I grew up in France, I never thought of it because
Hmm.
I did that too. And so yeah, it made me more compassionate, I will say, that
Hmm.
to know the process myself.
Right. And it develops a type of patience too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Trust the process, because some days, yeah, it would be more difficult, and yeah.
It's really like developing character in that sense. You're developing patience, you're developing compassion, you're becoming more tenacious. Um,
Mm.
and it's all for this pursuit of this dream of being able to live freely in a land and be able to go and come as you please and belong to a certain community too, right? So it's a grueling
Mhm.
process. That's what I've come to hear, at least come to learn through other people's stories. So that's fantastic. Congratulations on your citizenship.
Thank you.
And so, okay, so once you came to Canada and you have your young kids and you kind of grew them up in this French culture, um, what did they identify more with? Did they feel like they were more French or did they feel like they were more Canadian?
So that's a good question. I think, so they grew up in that context, but still at home, we were still kind of, yeah, more following our tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had both in a way, but like talking to them now, I know they always had the sense it was different at home than some other kids. But in the same time, now when they go to France, it takes them a little bit of time to adapt, because they can. So they're a little bit of both, I will say, and that's what makes them rich. So they're not
Mm-hmm.
fully identified with either one, I would say. So I think that's yeah, to me that's a richness, and
Mm,
that's what I came about as well. I find now when I go back there, it's, yeah, both are a little home, but I have enough distance so I can look at, yeah, with different eyes.
interesting. That's so interesting. So it's still home to you, but then Canada is also your home. So
Hmm.
it's like you don't belong to one or the other. You're kind of this unique combination of both now.
Yes, yeah, yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay. And
Even though I carry the French accent, but
I personally love your French accent. Honestly, it's so beautiful. I love it. So you could just talk all day long, Elodie, and I'd just be like, yes.
and I don't hear it. Only you hear it.
do you do the
I,
rest of
I
your family have the accent too? Like, do your kids? Do your husband?
My husband, of course, yes, and the kids. My daughter, not much. My son, a little bit more. People will tell him, oh,
Mm.
more a little lighter than us.
Aw, that is so cool. And so for your kids growing up, you had them in French immersion school,
A
correct?
francophone school.
Francophone school. Okay. And so then, what was it like for them to be in that type of environment? Did they, because they obviously had um, the French from France, and then they're kind of learning this Canadian type of French culture in school or being immersed in it, I should say. So, what was that like for them?
So they went to francophone school until my son did the first year of junior high, and then moved to English school, and my daughter until grade 5, and
Okay.
then she moved to English school. But yeah, I think I made the right call, because French was their first language, so it was easier in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. And so in Francophone school in Edmonton, you have the public school and the Catholic school. So
Okay.
I get to learn more about the history of Canada through that. For France, for example, in education, it's really strong, the public system,
Okay.
because there's this belief that school should be free and for everyone. And it's part of our history of people when people start to create schools.
Right.
There should be no sign of religion, and so yeah, it should be, yeah, equal. And
Okay.
so for me, with that background, it was, of course, I put them in public school. So they start in a public school, in a small one. So we moved in 2005, and Edmonton was like booming economically. And so they were like, they just start to open that school because they didn't have enough space for everyone. And it was a really sweet school. Like, I think they had 60 kids from like elementary and
What, in the whole school? 60
yeah,
kids?
60.
Wow.
I think of them I have started bigger, and then over the years it started to be less. And the majority of the population in that school was from Africa, like African background.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband has some African background, so I think it resonates easily for my kids and for us. It was a good fit. It
Right.
was a beautiful school, like very multicultural. So we really fit in. But later on, we moved in the west of the city, so they went to a Catholic school. So it's quite different. And I think, yeah, it's a whole about the history here. I think for Quebecois, the Catholic system,
Mm-hmm.
it's more in their background too. So,
Right.
but little different. And so we were not practicing any religion at home. So for the kids, yeah. So they witnessed different things. And in the public systems, there were more kids with a Muslim background. But
Okay.
we loved and we promote that with our kids, like learning the richness of that, like of our difference. And but I think, yeah, in the last year my son went to junior high and he felt like, yeah, more drawn with people coming from Africa. The school system is really close to the French one, because of the
Okay.
colonies. And so it's the language, many things are more the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Okay.
I know my son struggled sometimes with some teacher like Quebecois because they didn't understand the sense of humor, or sometimes they had
Oh,
the thick accent and it was hard, yeah, for their understanding.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, I would not blame anyone because, yeah, we come to Alberta, like the Francophone community is so diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
we have to learn to
Cohabitate.
cohabitate.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah.
Does it make you miss home a little bit?
Not really. No, because I told you, like over the years now, it's like, yeah, both, yeah, they are both home.
Yeah.
Even, yeah, I think now I haven't been back since years. So yeah, it will be, I might be foreign there now. A little bit. You still speak, you have, yeah, like deep roots in you that, yeah, you can easily
Yeah.
connect. But
Mhm. It'll just take you a couple of days and then French
yeah,
Elodie will come out again.
yes. So
Yeah.
it's true.
And then when you come back to Canada, then it'll take you a couple of days to adjust and then Canadian Elodie will come back.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember last time I went to France, at one point I was missing speaking English. So I was trying to find all the tourists
No
to speak
way.
English.
Oh, that's so funny. Wow. That's pretty good. Um, and so um, I guess I have some coming back to you now, like when you moved, what were you doing in France before, like job wise, and what was that transition like going into the education world? Because now you're working with kids and you're working within the school system, the public school system here. So,
Mhm.
what was that transition like for you?
So um, so I tried to translate with a Canadian. So in France I had my grade 12 diploma, and then I went to a fine art school. So I had a bachelor in fine art. I
Okay.
actually finished my last year. I was able to transition to finish my last year in an island, like a French island close to Madagascar. And so
Okay.
that was an interesting one too, because they speak French there, but they have the Creole, so they have their own slang too. So it's like a little bit, for me, it was like Quebec too. Like, okay, they speak French, but in such a different context. So
Mm.
they made it their own, right? Yeah, to me, it showed me how language are alive.
Yeah.
And so I got my diploma there, and then, yeah, shortly after I had my kids. and yeah, we had this idea of coming to Canada, but I think, yeah, as a young mother too, I think I felt safer to have my kids in France, as I knew the language and the context.
Okay.
And and so then, yeah, before I had my kids, with that diploma in France at that time, it didn't give me like work opportunity. I should have specialized more. So it was more like an open, like to become an artist or something like that.
Like a fine artist?
Yeah, fine artist.
Wow.
And so I find little job, like summertime when I was a student, I work in bakeries. So that's what I did too. It was easy for me to find job in that field, and it was fun. I loved it. And so, and then we moved, and yeah, I was more. And when you have kids, it's like you let go of all your um, um, how to say, all your ambition, like professional ambition was, yeah, on the side, and now the kids were the priority.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, it comes to me, yeah, it come kind of naturally that now we moved in the country. I didn't have so much family support, so it was between me and my husband to make it work.
Yeah.
And so soon enough, yeah, it was a natural path to go more into education, so I could have holidays with my kids. And then I was learning so much being a mom too.
Yeah, of
That,
course.
and I loved, like, yeah, to me, I made the connection between art and education. It was a creativity in both. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I was making my masterpiece by being a mom, and then learning from other kids. Like, I love the learning process in education. Like, it's, to me, it's never boring, because every child teach you something about you. And,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
so I have no regrets.
And did you end up teaching art classes, to kids?
Um, so the first, when my kids were little, and I was, yeah, I think I was staying home mom is not an easy job too. Sometimes
No.
you
Yeah.
crave a little bit meeting people. You and so I find this job, because at that time Edmonton was booming. Like, he was so, like, it was one of the things that blew me away comparing to France. It was my diploma suddenly, like my fine art diploma, was recognized here that it wasn't recognized in France much.
Yeah.
And so I find a job at for the city of Edmonton, giving like art and craft class for people with disabilities. And so I
Mhm.
was working with other women, and my English was not so good, but they were like, so I was coming with my own disability in that sense, and it was really sweet, because they really welcomed that, and we were laughing. And so, yeah, when I talk about this humble place, I remember being in the work environment, and I was more like listening to the colleagues, and you
Ah.
listen way more when you have um, less communication skills.
Mhm.
And that was so good, because you didn't add, yeah, you give you more distance too, more
Mhm.
perspective.
Yeah.
Later on, yeah, I did some art class for my kids in my kids' school, and like for fun.
Aw. That sounds that sounds lovely, honestly. It's really nice when you can kind of marry your passion with your work, and
Mhm.
you just get this really nice combination, and you find that you're doing something that's actually fulfilling. You're actually doing your calling, right? So, it's
Yes.
it's really nice when you can find that sweet spot.
Yeah, I was lucky. I think, yeah, for me, whenever I can, I know what I love when I was in school, like through art, and to be able to share that now, it's, yeah, it's a gift.
Mhm. Absolutely. And so now what are you doing?
Like, what's my job now? What did you
Yes,
ask?
sorry. Yes, what's your job now? What are you doing now with
So
work?
now, yeah, so I worked for many years with ABC at Start, so preschool age kid, and I work also for the Art Gallery of Alberta for 1 year. So I was giving tour in French and English, and so that was a fun job, but
Mm.
it wasn't a full-time job. So I ended up working for Edmonton Public School as a teacher assistant.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I love the one-on-one with the kids and yeah, the creativity really in the job.
Mhm. Absolutely. And so, Elodie, what kind of aspects do you appreciate about Canada?
There's many aspects. Huh. What speak to me too is the space you have here, like
Mm.
less people and the way, like, yeah, maybe that's like a nice picture. The way people drive here, because of the snow and the ice, it's way more relaxed. Like in Europe or in France, they speed like it's like a nervous way of driving, like super reactive.
Right.
And for me, it doesn't speak to me. I like the slow and relaxed way, and that people I always amazed since after many years. Like when you try to cross the road and the cars stop, like in France, you have to be careful that they don't
Yeah.
drive you over, and I think it speaks a lot about the Canadian kindness too
Mm.
and care. Yeah, and
Mm.
so this quality I think I really appreciate. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the nature too. Like we have so much space, natural space here. I
Mhm.
think yeah, it's quite a privilege.
Mhm. Right. And so, I'm wondering, if what kind of advice would you give other immigrants that are coming here to Canada that are going through the same grueling process that you and your family went through? What kind of words of encouragement would you pass along to them?
I will say you have to be a little bit crazy. And yeah, to see the whole process as an opportunity.
Mhm.
Like there will be days like going through immigration where you think, oh, everything is not working, and but really trust the process and know why you're coming here, and then yeah, go for the adventure ride.
Mhm. Go all out.
Yes, yeah, and also to I have seen so many families like there is a richness, so never let people bring you down because
Mhm.
you are really rich, even if the world don't highlight that often.
Yeah.
Because you kind of, as an immigrant, you appear to be the weak part, but I think you're the rich part of the society, and to one day you'll be able to share that.
Right. Yeah. Your experience is valuable then.
Hmm.
And it
And
has.
what you bring with you, because then you're just not a Canadian. You bring quality from your first culture as well, and so yeah, to be able to see the quality in Canada, like Canadian culture, and the quality from your own, um, and yeah, see how it takes form too.
Of course, yeah. Um, yeah, it's about the experience that you can share and recognizing that there's a story behind it too. I think for me, I kind of get the sense that there's a lot of immigrants that just they come and they don't think that they really have an experience or they don't really have a story to share about themselves. But here's the thing, it's like, no, there's a story behind there. You just have to stop and think about it because you came from one place and you're coming to live in another. That's already a story
Hmm.
in itself. So recognizing that and being able to go through that process and then, when it's all said and done, you have a story out of it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Even when I worked for ABC at start, I was in charge of preparing the snack for the kids, and toward my last year there, I created this project where I invited the parents if they wanted to cook with the kids.
Oh,
And so they will bring a recipe from their own, and we had a variety of culture represented. And so it was amazing, like from the Moroccan tea to some African dishes, and it was really empowering, I think, for the parents to so
hmm,
it shows that like yes, you coming for with something, and the kids will benefit, yeah, to taste the richness of the food, of the
yep.
care behind it. So
the traditions even and how things are prepared, and then even the names of the dishes themselves, they come with their own names, and so you kind of think on a language perspective, oh, that's so different, like I want to know more about it. But maybe
yes,
when you're a kid, I think you just think food. You just go in and eat. But maybe
but
when you get older.
there was a warmth to from the mom or the dad that will come, like take the time to do that with them. And yeah, I think it's yeah, really the potential here in Canada with the variety of the multicultural variety of people is it's so rich.
Mm, yeah. Well, thank you, Elodie, for sharing your experience, and thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Hey everyone, and thanks for watching this episode of Immigrants of Canada. If you'd like to continue hearing more inspiring immigrant stories like Elodie's, make sure you subscribe to Immigrants of Canada's YouTube channel and hit that notification bell. This podcast is also made possible through your financial support. So if you would like to contribute financially to Immigrants of Canada, please visit www.immigrantofcanada.com/donate. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next show.